section 21224 as extra help. And the government code section, item B, same appointment as interim city manager upon the retirement of our city manager. Madam City Attorney, would you like to explain what we're doing here? And then we can take an action.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. And I would note that Ms. KURTZ is participating remotely and was able to join in. The city council has indicated that it intends to hire Ms. KURTZ for extra help in the near future, starting on November 10th, until she would take the role of interim city manager, which she would begin after the current city manager, Steve Mermel, retires. And his last day would be December 2nd. So her first day would be December 3rd. And what's before you includes the proposed basic terms of the contract. It would be an employment contract for those two appointments. And they are in compliance with the PURS regulations because she is a PURS retiree, and she is former city manager with the city of Pasadena as well. So there is a resolution that is recommended for approval that would authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement for the interim city manager services, and then a separate agreement regarding extra help. So I don't know.
And again, yeah, that's fine. So this report comes from me, and again, it's intended to recognize the fact that there are a lot of pending issues before the city and residents of the city, and as our city manager, Steve Mermel, transitions into a less stressful part of his life. We hope a less stressful part of his life. We did want to bring on someone sooner rather than later to help with the transition, to help with the downloading of information that's always necessary to have a smooth transition. And frankly, to pick the city manager's brain with regard to how the transition should go. And so Ms. KURTZ is available to anyone who would like to ask questions. Otherwise, we will entertain a motion to proceed with item 10. Vice Mayor.
I'm happy to move the motion, and I probably should disclose that I had a chance to work with you in putting together the basic framework, and really feel like this is a really fortunate opportunity for us to bridge the gap, and I think it's in the best interest of the city, and grateful for Ms. KURTZ's willingness to jump in. So I'm happy to move this item, and thank you for helping me collaborate with you in putting this together.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Wilson. Ms. Williams is in the queue.
Second.
There's a second for Mr. Kennedy.
I just had a couple of questions. I didn't see a term for the agreement from when it starts December 3rd. What would the term be?
It would end at the time that the regular city manager would commence their position. So we just need to state that that's when it is. That we don't need a specific date.
But but you just mentioned up to 1 year, because I think it's important to communicate to the public that we are diligently working on getting a city manager. And I think that term or end date would help communicate that.
And when we come back with a formal, I guess we would once we negotiate an agreement, we'll have that in mind for the
That
council.
information would be incorporated in the contract.
Okay. And I think Cynthia probably is itching to help us. Well, one of her first acts will be to help us start the process and help to guide the process. And we're fortunate to have so many residents in Pasadena who are ready to step in and help out. And so I personally want to thank Cynthia for being willing to help out in this time of transition, and our city manager, who has already been in contact with Ms. KURTZ to begin the downloading of information process.
Okay, so just the one comment would be to have it be up to a year, as mentioned. And then at what point would we make public what the process will be for hiring the full-time city manager?
I think we're going to post the position sooner rather than later to commence the process, and then develop a formal process for the council's consideration, consistent with what we've done in the past to hire new city managers.
Okay, perfect. And it'd be great if we could communicate that to the public, because there are a lot of
Absolutely.
questions. I think that would sort of allay a lot of
Absolutely.
people's questions.
And
fears.
many of
Thanks.
us have received inquiries about the process, and I think the public should know that we will incorporate, as we have in the past, a public dimension to it. And, ultimately, it's a city council decision, but I think it's important that the public weigh in terms of attributes, in terms of issues that are important to the public, as we have in the past. And so we'll develop that process and present it for the council's approval.
Thank you, Mayor.
Cynthia, welcome. Do you want to? First thing we have to teach her is Zoom.
Was there a question?
No, just thank you for, unless you wanted to say something, thank you for your willingness to accept the challenge and work with Steve in a transition.
Well, thank you all, and I'm really honored to be considered to fill in the interim. I'm looking for, assuming that the vote goes forward tonight, I'm looking forward to doing it. And I did want to add one thing. I'd like to thank City Manager Mermel. He reached out to me immediately. We have meetings set up. He's been sending me information and has done everything he can to make this transition as seamless as possible. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, and Mayor, if I may, I want to congratulate the council on their selection of Cynthia as the interim. I could think of no one better. I never would have made it to this chair, but for the faith and confidence Cynthia had in me when I was coming up through the ranks. So I'm happy to be able to give her a little work like she used to give me. So it's really a great selection, and the city's going to be very well served.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else before we take a roll call? I joke that, and this is not intended to make our city clerk think twice, but now we should find Jane Rodriguez and we'll have the full complement of, but we're happy with our city clerk.
Thank you, Mayor.
That was a joke, Mark.
I understand.
So roll
Cynthia,
call.
I should disclose that the mayor could be a little difficult, but I hear the vice mayor is a real charmer, so don't sweat it.
Councilmember,
So start your roll call.
Councilmember Hampton,
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Madison,
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Gordo.
Yes.
Motion is unanimously approved.
Thank you. And thank you, Cynthia, and we'll see you soon. And again, thank you to the city manager for reaching out immediately to start the transition and downloading of information that we know is important as we wind our way through these changes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ms. KURTZ. And we'll move on to item 11.
Mayor, as the staff comes in, there was a lot of correspondence related to item 11. If I can, I'll just announce it. The city clerk's office received 18 letters providing comments and expressing strong support for the proposed ordinance prohibiting the sale of menthol and all flavored tobacco products sooner rather than later. One letter was received highlighting the LA County Department of Public Health ordinance establishing restrictions on retail sales of tobacco products with several of the letters suggesting that hookah be included in the proposed ban. One letter was received in opposition to the proposed ordinance, urging the city not to move forward with the proposed ban on flavored tobacco and electronic cigarette products and to defer action until the voters have an opportunity to vote on whether to allow the statewide flavor ban, SB 793, to go into effect, which will be in November 2022. All the letters were posted online, distributed to the council, and are part of the record for this item.
Okay, so we'll move on to, we have 27 cards, colleagues, so I'm going to say 1 minute for each speaker because we still have an important closed session to get to. And with the consent of the council, we'll move to 1 minute. And Mr. Carmona, this has been before us before, so we can probably make it a very short intro.
Mayor, I don't think there's a staff presentation per se, because this is coming back to you in the form of the ordinance.
Okay.
It was directed previously, but Mr. Carmona, our Deputy Director of Public Health, is here to answer any questions that the council members may have.
Got it. So here for first reading, is someone willing to offer?
I'll offer it. I'll second, or not required, yeah.
It was offered by Councilmember Hampton.
And
You want me to do the first reading and then we do the public comment, or you want to do
Yes.
public? Okay. So this is an ordinance of the city of Pasadena, California, amending the tobacco retailer license ordinance, Title 5, Chapter 5.74 of the Pasadena Municipal Code, and the tobacco use prevention ordinance, Title 8, Chapter 8.78 of the Pasadena Municipal Code. And it was offered again by Councilmember Hampton. So moving to public comment with 1 minute for each speaker. The first public comment speaker actually that we'll call on is someone who put in for items 11 and 12. So we'll give that person 1 minute to speak on 11 and 12. Her name is Crystal O. We'll hopefully grab the right Crystal O. Crystal? You have
Yeah,
one,
can you hear me?
yes, you have 1 minute and you're speaking on items 11 and 12, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So for item 11, it's going to be Dear Mayor Victor Gordo and members of the City Council, Rethinking Access to Marijuana RAM is a coalition of diverse groups and community-based organizations working together to educate people across the Los Angeles County about the harms associated with marijuana use and related products like flavored tobacco. It is important that we seek strict regulations for tobacco sales in the city of Pasadena as a prevention measure for our community. New products are entering our streets daily and they are impacting many around us, especially our youth. Studies have shown that most of our youth have been introduced to the act of smoking through flavored tobacco. Therefore, it's vital that we place great importance on this item. And I'm here representing RAM, which is a coalition which stands for Rethinking Access to Marijuana. And for item 12, I'm here representing RAD, which is another coalition, which stands for Rethinking Alcohol and Other Drugs. And this coalition is a community-based agencies and stakeholders and residents working together to improve the health and safety of communities across the San Gabriel Valley by reducing the alcohol, cannabis, and other drugs-related harms through education, youth empowerment, and policy development. And we respectfully oppose any action taken to reduce the distance between cannabis retailers in the city of Pasadena from 1,000 feet to 450 feet. RAD opposes to increase the maximum number of cannabis retailers allowed in each city district from 1 to 3.
Crystal, your time
amending
has
the current-
expired.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So next is Anna Alicia Carr, then Primo Castro, then April Frank. Ms. Carr, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Annalisa Carr, Community Advocacy Director with the American Heart Association. We applaud the city's interest in ending the sale of all flavored tobacco products in Pasadena. Every day that goes by is an opportunity for the tobacco industry to target vulnerable communities with aggressive tactics and deadly products. The evidence is well documented and undeniable. Flavors hook Black and Latino communities, youth, and LGBTQ communities. We support ending the sale of all flavored tobacco products without exemptions, as is done in your draft ordinance. However, all flavored tobacco policies are only as good as their enforcement. The current ordinance uses fines and possible imprisonment for violations. For an employee or clerk, this would pose significant equity issue. The AHA recommends moving the flavored tobacco policy to the tobacco retail license ordinance. This change would allow the city to suspend and eventually revoke the license of repeat offenders. This is a stronger, more effective way for the city to enforce the flavored tobacco policy. We hope to work closely with the council to ensure Pasadena has the strongest tobacco retail license possible in place that will match neighbors in unincorporated LA County and Alhambra, which have comprehensive policies.
Ms.
We
Carr, your
respectfully
time has
ask for your
expired.
support.
Thank you. We'll go to Primo Castro. Mr. Castro, you have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Gordo and Council. My name is Primo Castro, Government Relations Director for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. We ask that you please enact a strong ordinance prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco in the city. As the nation's leading cancer advocacy organization with a mission to reduce the incidence, death, and suffering caused by cancer, the American Cancer Society would like to make it categorically clear that ending the sale of all flavored tobacco products without exemptions is a crucial step to reduce the burden of cancer. In order to help reduce these health disparities and protect the Pasadena kids from tobacco addiction and tobacco-related disease, it's imperative that our council members swiftly approve and adopt a strong, comprehensive ordinance that ends the sale of all flavored tobacco products, including menthol, cigarettes, e-cigarettes, cigars, and flavored shisha. Thank you.
Thank you. April Frank, followed by Carolina Barahona, followed by Deirdre Duncan. Ms. Frank, you have 1 minute. When you're ready, you need to unmute. Ms. Frank, can you unmute your display?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is April Frank, and I'm a community member. Tonight, I would like to speak on behalf of my dearest friend, Monique Colson. Unfortunately, tonight she cannot be here to talk about how important it is to protect Pasadena's youth from all forms of flavored tobacco. You see, Monique passed away at the age of 55 from complications associated with her lifelong use of tobacco. Monique started using menthol cigarettes as a teen. This is not a surprise, as the Centers for Disease Control cites that 9 of 10 adult cigarette smokers began smoking before the age of 18. Today, over half of cigarette smokers use menthol. The U.S. Surgeon General found that over the tobacco industry's focus has been on making and creating new customers. I'd like to say that California Senate Bill 793 should be the floor, yet Pasadena can do more and go further to pass a comprehensive policy to restrict the sale of all forms of flavored tobacco.
Ms. Frank, your
products.
time has expired. Could you bring your comments to a close?
Please consider Pasadena's youth as you move forward to consider this important item. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolina Barahona, followed by Deirdre Duncan, followed by Yanith Rodriguez. Ms. Barahona,
Yes.
please go
Good
ahead.
evening,
You have 1
council
minute.
members. Thank you. Good evening, council members. My name is Carol Barahona, Senior Community Impact Director with the American Heart Association. The American Heart Association is encouraged by the action taken by the council to end the sale of flavored tobacco products in the city of Pasadena. We support adoption of a comprehensive flavored tobacco ordinance without exemptions. The tobacco industry is actively and aggressively working to addict new young people in Pasadena with easy access to candy-flavored tobacco products. At least 2/3 of youth tobacco users report using tobacco products, quote, because they come in flavors I like. Ending the sale of all flavored tobacco will reduce access to the products that are the tobacco industry's key strategies for targeting and addicting new smokers, particularly youth. A comprehensive policy ending the sale of all flavored tobacco products without exemptions will help protect Pasadena youth from nicotine addiction and tobacco-related death and disease. We respectfully ask for your support for this vital public health policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Deirdre Duncan, followed by Yanith Rodriguez. Deirdre, it's *6 to unmute.
Am I?
Yep, we can hear you. Go
Hello.
ahead. You have 1 minute, please.
Good evening. Good evening, council members and the mayor. I'm here to tell you that we need to have our own ordinance that we control as council and as residents of Pasadena. We need to stop flavored tobacco, menthol, and protect our youth. As you all know, my passion is our children. And I need you to understand that we need to be in front. We used to be the leaders, but now we have lagged behind. So we need to get control and actually do something to protect our youth and the future youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Yanith Rodriguez, followed by Jeff Keane, followed by Tomas Torici. Go ahead, Ms. Rodriguez. You have 1 minute.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Pasadena Mayor and City Council members. My name is Yanette Rodriguez, and I work at the USC Department of Population and Public Health Sciences at the Tech School of Medicine. I would like to share research findings from the USC Tobacco Center of Regulatory Science. I would like to highlight that we found that a strong comprehensive ordinance to regulate e-cigarettes, flavored, and menthol tobacco products has a tremendous potential to substantially reduce youth use of tobacco products, including e-cigarettes. Our research shows that a strong comprehensive tobacco retail license preventing sales to minors was associated with lower rates of youth and adult initiation of combustible tobacco and e-cigarette use. Prior to this meeting, I sent you additional information for your consideration regarding hookah, and specifically that Latino adolescents are more susceptible to hookah, and that several studies have shown that 1 out of 4 college nicotine users started with hookah. I share this because PCC is an important part of your community, and 48% of your student population identifies as Hispanic Latino. We hope that this research—
Ms. Rodriguez, could you please bring your comments to a close?
Please let me know if you have any questions for our team that we may be able to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Keane, followed by Tomas Torici, or Teresa's, followed by Kelly Hawkins. Mr. Keane, go ahead. You have 1 minute. You need to unmute. There you go.
Good evening, council members. Can you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jeff Keane. I am a Pasadena resident, and I'm a volunteer with the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. I am also the immediate past chair of the National Board of Directors of the American Cancer Society. And I won't restate what I've heard from my colleagues at the Heart Association and my friends at the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. But I will add that in California, more than 70 localities have already ended the sale of flavored tobacco products without exemptions, including the county of Los Angeles and the cities of Carson and Hermosa Beach. I urge us to join those communities with this ordinance without exemption, without exception. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Tomas Teresa's, followed by Kelly Hawkins, followed by Lorraine Jackson. Tomas, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Dr. Tomas Torices, speaking in favor of this ordinance. I'm the Executive Director for the American Academy of Pediatrics, California Chapter 2. We are in Pasadena and represent 1,500 pediatricians in 7 counties from San Luis Obispo to San Bernardino. I am also a Bulldog, graduated from Pasadena High School in 1985, and a proud parent of a 7th grader at Marshall Fundamental. The AAP supports a ban on the sales of flavored tobacco. I don't need to go over the statistics that are well documented, which you have referenced in your fact sheet. I do want to add that tobacco is a highly addictive drug with severe health consequences, short and long term, and it has been masked and made to look pretty and tasty by adding flavors to lure consumers into a lifetime addiction. Teens have been the main target of flavored tobacco products, exposing them and their developing brain to nicotine up to age 25, which is very dangerous. I cannot go over the physiologic reasons because I don't have the time. This is a fantastic move. You have our support on the ordinance, and I commend you for your leadership. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Kelly Hawkins, followed by Lorraine Jackson, followed by Lori Bremner. Ms. Hawkins, go ahead. You have 1 minute. Unmute, and your time will start. Ms. Hawkins? If you're able to unmute your Zoom. There you go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Oh, you got a little bit of feedback. Hopefully.
Good evening. Just calling in support of this evening's ordinance. I'm hoping that you look closely at what the other cities around you and the region have done. For far too long, big tobacco has targeted our communities. And when you look at those communities that have been impacted greatly by the sale of menthol cigarettes, it's the Black and brown communities of our cities. This is definitely an ordinance about retail sales and not about possession. So do not be confused by the opposition who might try to tell you otherwise. Our communities have been targeted, and it's time that we all stand up together to fight against big tobacco. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lorraine Jackson, followed by Lori Bremner, followed by Wes Ruderman, who is not yet checked in, so we may move on to Denise Nunez, MD. Lorraine Jackson, go ahead. 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Jackson, and I believe this is voter suppression. Are you, the council, going to take our rights away ahead of the November 22 referendum? The people have a right to decide. Banning flavor of menthol cigarettes will cause unintended consequences. So don't ban it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lori Bremner, followed by Wes Ruderman, who is not checked in. We would move then to Denise Nunez, MD. Ms. Bremner, go ahead. 1 minute.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Lori Bremner with Parents Against Vaping E-Cigarettes. PAVE supports comprehensive ordinances that end the sale of all flavored tobacco products with no exemptions for any flavor, nor any product type, nor any location. I'd like to dispel a couple myths you're likely to hear from different corners of the tobacco industry. The industry will tell you that if stores can't sell flavored tobacco, the kids will just get it online. This is a myth. SB 39, which took effect January 1st, 2020, makes it virtually impossible for anyone under 21 to buy any tobacco product online in California. The industry will tell you that flavored shisha tobacco does not target youth. This is a myth. Between Universal Stop and Washington Tobacco, you can buy shisha tobacco in the flavors of Fuzzy Navel, Blueberry Muffin, UFO, and one even called Candy with lollipops on the canister. Those flavored shisha tobacco products target youth. Please pass this comprehensive ordinance tonight without delay. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to skip Wes Ruderman as he's not checked in and move on to Denise Nunez, MD, MPH. Ms. Nunez, go ahead. 1 minute.
Yes, hello, greeting to you, all respected council members and community of Pasadena. Thanks for your attention. My name is Denise Nunez, and I'm a physician and director of the UCLA Anti-Vaping Champions, and also a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics, Southern California. Tobacco is a substance that we never need to introduce to our bodies, and still it's the leading cause of illness and death in the United States. Everyone has a right to a healthy, vibrant life, and tobacco use and its availability is therefore a social and civil rights issue. As a physician, I've seen the impacts of increased use of vapes among my youngest patients. It's troubled me to see them sent to the hospital as a result of using vapes, affecting their developing brains into the future. And even worse, to know that little ones as young as 9 years old are addicted to vapes and attracted to the innovative flavors that set them up for a lifetime of health issues. The availability of these products are in your power, and I commend your opportunity to make a choice that will power the health of generations. As valued leaders, protect our kids and ban flavored tobacco in Pasadena, and make the choice that will protect our youth, their right to health and future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wes Ruderman has joined us. We'll call him in. Then Jamie Rojas has not checked in. We'll move on to Claudia, then Jennifer Speck, then Christy Zamani. Mr. Ruderman, 1 minute. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. Longtime Pasadena resident, also a former high school educator, calling to support this effort to phase out the sale of flavored tobacco products. As an educator, I watched firsthand how students, particularly high school students, pick up this deadly addiction. This is something that the tobacco industry is very familiar with. They know the vast majority of smokers, it's estimated to be about 3 in 4, begin smoking before the age of 18. And as a result, products like these are really designed for and focused on underage smokers. They recognize that their long-term profitability is really dependent upon getting young kids hooked. And I think we also have, you have a really tremendous opportunity because Pasadena and cities across the state have led on evidence-based tobacco control policy over the past 3 decades.
Mr. Ruderman, your
Thanks to this,
time
we
has
already have
expired.
the
Could you
second
bring
lowest
your...
smoking rate in the U.S. So hope you move the city forward this evening by taking this step. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Jamie Rojas is not in the meeting, so we'll move on to Claudia, and then Jennifer Speck, and then Christy Zamani. Claudia, go ahead and unmute. You have 1 minute. Can you unmute your display? There you go. Go ahead. A little louder.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, go ahead. 1 minute.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
My name is Claudia. Sorry. Good evening. Thanks for this opportunity. My name is Claudia, and I'm a longtime resident of Pasadena. My husband and I are law-abiding retailers and citizens of the city. We also have children and would never, ever even think of selling to minors or not being careful about that. We realize and take the youth vape epidemic very seriously, but it should not lead this council to overextend and prohibit the sale of other flavored tobacco. Other flavored tobacco legal products, especially when there are so many responsible retailers such as ourselves. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jennifer Speck, followed by Christy Zamani, followed by Pastor William D. Smart Jr. Ms. Speck, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, hi. 1 minute. Go ahead.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Jennifer Speck. I'm asking that our distinguished lawmakers heed the warning signs of the unintended consequences of a menthol cigarette ban, a racially discriminatory law. I urge the City Council to listen to the voices that have spoken out against a menthol cigarette ban and who continues to ask that our lawmakers consider the facts and make an evidence-based decision on the proposed ban of menthol cigarettes. Let's work together and use our time and resources to focus on education about the dangers and harms of smoking and help our treatment for those who want to quit. Thank you so much. You guys continue to have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Christy Zamani, followed by Pastor William D. Smart Jr., followed by Olivia Barber. Christy, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
1 minute. Go ahead.
Good evening. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the leadership to address the impact of flavored tobacco on our youth and communities of color. I sent over some fact sheets for you earlier tonight. I hope you found those helpful in arriving at your decision today. I know when we last spoke, when this item was on the agenda, we heard from some people speaking to the culture of the hookah use, and I hope that you see that, like me, music, art, poetry, food, dance are positive cultural elements that we as a city always stand up for and support, but not nicotine products that lead to chronic illness, respiratory diseases, and cancer. As a city, Pasadena has always been at the forefront of health policies, and I hope we continue that tradition tonight by adopting this policy with no exemptions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Pastor William D. Smart, followed by Olivia Barber, followed by Hrant Vartsbedian. Pastor Smart, go ahead.
Yes. Greetings, City Council. I'm President and CEO of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference of Southern California Civil Rights Organization. And I'd like to say that we are against this because this is a civil rights issue. You cannot deny one group something that another group has. If you're going to put a ban on menthol, something that is favored by a certain segment of the population, there has to be a ban on everything. And I'm here, we are educating our youth. We do not believe, I personally have never smoked. I don't believe in smoking, but like so many other things in our society, people who want to do that have a right to do that. And you cannot, and they have a right to buy it. And everyone talks about the unintended consequences because when people go to the black market or they go on the street to get these products, there are consequences with law enforcement. We ask you to band together, get a study out and look at this issue all the way through so that you do not hurt a segment of the community that you say you want to help. Thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you. Olivia Barber, followed by Hrant Vartsbedian, followed by Stephen Gallegos. Ms. Barber?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Barber. I am a smoker. I don't see what the problem is with youth getting a hold to these products. Youth are not supposed to be buying tobacco products at all. That seems like an issue to take up with the retailers. Adults should be able to smoke whatever they want, whenever they want. It sounds like there's a lack of parenting going on, and there's a lack of enforcement with retailers. Please allow us as adults to smoke whatever we want, whenever we want. Do something, figure out another way to restrict underage children from smoking flavored tobaccos. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Hrant Vartsbedian, followed by Stephen Gallegos, followed by Dr. Philip Gardiner. It's *6 to unmute. There you go. Go ahead. You have
Good
1
evening,
minute.
Mayor.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, members. Thank you for taking time to hear us. I am Hrant Vartsbedian. I represent the National Hookah Community Association. Hookah is not the problem in the classroom. Governor Newsom said that in public as he signed SB 793. The California Assembly, the California State Senate have both approved SB 793 as is, excluding some cigars and hookah, because they know, as well as you do, that hookah is not the problem. Hookah is a 3 feet thing you can't put in your backpack, you can't take to school, you can't hide from your parents as you can with vape. Hookah can only be used in lounges that you've already closed in Pasadena, or in the privacy of your homes, which you're trying to close now. You're denying the Middle Eastern and the Armenians of Pasadena from smoking hookah just because you don't like it and because you don't know what it is. That's the blunt truth. Hookah is not the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stephen Gallegos, followed by Philip Gardner, followed by Rima S. Khoury.
Hello, my name is Stephen Gallegos. I'm the president of Public Health Policy Advocates. I've been in tobacco control for 25 years, and I've helped to move our culture from one that accepted and where people had no choice of breathing secondhand smoke wherever they were, including their family, wherever their families went. We eliminated smoking in Pasadena in parks, restaurants, public events, apartments, city buses, the Rose Bowl Parade, and City Hall. The City of Pasadena's City Council has been a leader in presenting public health protection for its citizens and its visitors. I was the first tobacco control enforcement officer in the City of Pasadena. And every time that we went to restaurants that were owned by certain population in Pasadena. They would allow hookah smoking. And when I went in with the police officers, we presented them citations, and they just looked at us, threw it in the trash, and said, "It's just the cost of doing business." Well, it was also the cost.
Mr. Gallegos, your time has expired. Do you want to bring your comments to a close?
Yes, I do. This policy also prevents people from getting COVID-19 and ending up in the hospital. So I want to ask the city council to enforce the smoking regulations and prohibit the sale and distribution within the city of mentholated cigarettes, their flavored tobacco products, including flavored tobacco products for electronic smoking devices and hookahs.
Thank you. Dr. Philip Gardner, followed by Rima S. Khoury, followed by George Johnson. Mr. Gardner, go ahead, 1 minute.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Philip Gardner. I'm the co-chair of the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council. We've sent you information on this issue a few times. You should have received it earlier today. Let me suggest this, that the idea that, what's my slide? No. The idea that we should wait for the state of California to pass residents puts Pasadena citizens at the back of the bus. Secondly, there's studies that we have just found out, and you've been made aware of, that shows that between 1980 and 2018, African Americans were responsible for 105 million new smokers, 150,000 smoking-related premature deaths, and 1.5 million years of life lost. I sent you the data. We aren't making this up. And then let's be clear, things like nothing to do with, Blue Mist, Irish Kiss, and Sex on the Beach, frankly, doesn't have anything to do with Middle Eastern culture. As we already said,
Mr. Gardner, your time has expired. Can you bring your comments to a close?
I will bring it to a close right now. Let's prohibit the sale of flavored and all tobacco products. It's not, who's the racist here? It's not the tobacco control advocates, it's the tobacco industry.
Thank you, sir. Rima S. Khoury, followed by George Johnson, followed by student of Pasadena, Brianna, 13 years old. Rima, go ahead. Ms. Khoury, *6 to unmute. There you go.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Rima Khoury. I'm General Counsel for FAMARI and one of the founding members of the National Hookah Community Association, which was established to protect and preserve the rich cultural tradition of hookah. On behalf of the NHC members that include Arabs, Armenians, Turks, Indians, North Africans, and other minority groups, we ask the City of Pasadena to mirror SB 793, the California State Flavored Tobacco Ban, which exempts hookah in 21 and over establishments. Hookah is not vape. Hookahs are not easy to conceal because they're traditionally 3 feet tall and take 15 to 30 minutes to set up. There is no teen hookah epidemic. They are not being confiscated at schools, and according to the FDA and CDC, they're the lowest, most least used tobacco product compared to other categories. Hookah has been around for hundreds of years and traditionally made with molasses and honey, called masal. A flavored tobacco ban is a hookah ban because hookah tobacco comes in flavors. The NHCA welcomes reasonable regulations that addresses youth access
Ms.
and
Khoury,
usage of flavored tobacco products.
Okay, your time has
Please mirror
expired.
SB 793, which addresses the issue while also preserving the rich cultural tradition of hookah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. George Johnson, followed by Brianna, student of Pasadena. Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Good evening, City Council and Honorable Mayor. My name is George Johnson. I manufacture traditional wooden hookah pipes called Regal Hookah, and my largest market is the Armenian portions of LA, so the valley over to Pasadena. And I humbly ask you guys to mirror SB 793. It's great to have hegemony across the board and preserve my business. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I care for in my 90s grandparents that I live with. They're Nisei Japanese Americans who lost everything during World War II, and I hate to see this happen to my Muslim friends in the community that I serve. People say we're not banning hookah, we're just banning flavors. It's like saying we're not banning tacos, we're just banning tortillas. I won't sell any of my wooden hookah pipes if people can't buy the tobacco to put in it. So please follow the exemptions by the state, as well as West Hollywood, Irvine, Burbank, Glendale, Ventura.
Mr. Johnson, your time has expired. Do you want to bring your comments to a close?
Please save my business, save my future, and exempt traditional hookah.
Thank you. Brianna, student in Pasadena. *6 to unmute, Brianna. Brianna, if you could press *6 to unmute your phone. Okay. All right. That would complete Oh, there she got it. Go ahead, Brianna.
Hello. I would just like y'all to know that the tobacco industry is making things to attract kids by using their favorite animals, candy or mythical creatures, etc. A saying that my mother says is, "Are you a puppet or a puppeteer?" So, are you a puppet or a puppeteer for the tobacco industry? I would like to know. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. I think that completes public comment. I'll look to the city clerk to, is that all?
Yes, Mayor, that completes public comment on item 11.
Okay, so that did, remind me, did somebody offer?
It was offered by Councilmember Hampton.
Offered by Mr. Hampton. Questions or comments from members of the council?
Mr. Wilson.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I actually was not around when this came through first time, so I have a few questions to get me up to speed. I'm curious, maybe this is to the city attorney. There was, I think, a letter, and one of the speakers spoke against the penalties being lobbied against the employee versus the operator. Is that, did you understand that comment, and is there a concern there? Could you respond to that?
Yes, I did get a chance to take a look, and I would note that Mr. Carmona, Manuel Carmona, the Deputy Director of Public Health, they've been really following this issue and all of the communications and correspondence. I would note that the other point that was raised in the letter was that we should not have it as a potential criminal penalty, but only as a civil penalty. But if we were to do that, many businesses end up viewing the civil penalty as just the cost of doing business. Certainly, it isn't something that there is an intention to have anyone arrested or jailed for this, but there would be potential criminal violations. And what we have discovered with some of our other enforcement of tobacco and even hookah locations, it's more effective when we go the way that is proposed in this ordinance.
I don't know if maybe you want to weigh in on that as well, but as long as you fully thought through the issue, I want to make sure that we're weighed the strategies and come up with what we think is most effective.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Wilson. Pleasure to be here tonight, and good evening, everyone. At the Health Department, of course, we are always considering equity. We take that approach with everything we do. So we're well aware and sensitive to the fact that individuals, especially clerks who might be working at these retailers, are probably not our primary targets for this particular ordinance. But we do want to have our toolbox filled with as many options as possible. We should note that both the criminal and civil actions were already in the municipal code. These are not changes that we're adding in. What we have done is enhance the
penalties for individuals and entities that violate the ordinance, increasing the fines. Of course, working with our city attorney's office, we will continue to educate and seek compliance rather than criminalize. But we do want to have focus on the entities themselves who unfortunately have a history of repeat offenses. And so what the ordinance amendment will be doing is extending the review period from 30 days to 120 days. And by allowing for us to document these violations, we'll have a better way of holding these retailers accountable and potentially denying them a retailer license if they are not complying with the ordinance. So I'm just say that we're taking an equity approach here. We're well aware that these can be legitimate penalties, but they're going to be reserved for those folks who were repeat offenders or have the most egregious offenses.
Yeah, I think the idea. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
I would just note that the council, when they directed preparation of the ordinance, wanted there to be stiffer potential penalties. So this was to address that. But again, everything depends on the circumstances and appropriateness in terms of pursuing potential violators.
You just can imagine, a frontline hourly worker, getting some sort of, criminal penalty. So anyway, I think I'm glad you've thought through that. And the second item, I'm sure this was talked about before, Manuel, it's probably to you. This includes hookah. Well, I know the state SB was at 793, did not. I'm guessing this was discussed probably at length last time, but since I wasn't here, can you talk through? I don't smoke, so I don't really know, but I have seen a hookah, and it doesn't look like something a kid or a teenager is going to either have in their room or put in their pocket. Why was that contemplated to be carved out, and what was the thinking? How much thought was given to that specific item?
Absolutely. So we did look at the issue. It was a question that arose at the last time that we presented in August. What we know about flavored tobacco in any form is that it does entice kids to enter into use of tobacco. We also know that flavored hookah comes in different forms as well, different products. And so we actually went out because we wanted to understand how our retailers were selling hookah or tobacco intended for hookah. And when we, there's 88 retailers in the city, so we had previously done the site survey, but many of the retailers did not want to share sales information with us. So there was no way for us really to do an assessment at that level. Instead, after the feedback from the last council meeting, we went out to the 7 retailers that were promoting that they actually sold hookah at their retail location. And upon visiting, all 7 didn't have any tobacco for hookah on display or on their shelves at all. And we already know that there is no ability to smoke hookah or any other tobacco in restaurants or in unenclosed areas or bars or restaurants. And so we're not sure, what exactly individuals in our city are doing to sell hookah, but we didn't find any evidence that it's a big part of the market.
So I guess that's part of the question. The second one is, in terms of the health intent of making it more difficult or less attractive for our youth, do you see that the youth, and this is kind of a public health question, are using hookah flavored, I guess it's flavored, as a kind of gateway, and that's a problem that we need to solve, and understand that it may not be a big dollar amount, but I want to know from a public health perspective, was that something that you think is important and needs to be preempted?
Understood. In terms of hookah itself on its face, we have limited data, but we just know that flavored tobacco is a gateway for a lifetime of use. And so that's why we're trying to limit all of those avenues to access.
And do you have any perspective as to why the state carved it out? I mean, I assume there's probably something in the legislative record around their thinking. Were you able to explore that?
I have Judith Dunaway, who's our Health Promotion and Policy Development Division Manager. She's on the line. She's more familiar with what other jurisdictions have done. Judith, can you provide some reflection there?
We're going to bring her in right now.
Okay.
Judith, you're in the meeting. Were you able to hear the question?
If you can please repeat it.
Hi, Judith. My question was really in terms of legislative record. There were a bunch of municipalities in the state itself under SB 793 excluded hookah from the ban. I'm curious as to what the thinking was and why we think that it's appropriate to ban it here, and what number of municipalities did not ban it versus banned it, or is, you know, if 99% of them banned it, then that's probably good for me, but I'd like to have a little bit more color. And we do have, as you know, a fair number of, I think, residents who are of Middle Eastern heritage. I understand that is maybe a cultural aspect and probably not as much as some of our neighboring communities. So I wanted to ask the question so you can inform us around what's happened in other municipalities on that front.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Vice Mayor Wilson. As Deputy Director Carmona stated, there was, the state has that exemption. Again, it's on the referendum until November, which is we don't want to wait until November 2022. From the 119 jurisdictions in California that have passed flavor ordinance, only 8 have a hookah exemption, so the majority do not.
Can you illuminate to us at all as to what the thinking was in the 8 who allowed it versus the whatever 100 who did?
From the analysis that the California Department of Public Health has conducted, there is a timeline. We can only speculate as to why the exemptions started coming more recently. It could have been that the beginning, and there's some anecdotal information about how the beginning, the ordinances that were passed didn't see all the opposition that eventually came forth as those restricted sales were making an impact. And according to the timeline, there is some, you can see more of those exemptions coming in the later part compared to those that passed it in 2017, 2018, 2019, and then the exemptions started occurring and happening. Again, the recommendation statewide from all the many folks on this call is to have a comprehensive policy that does not leave any door open to flavor products. And that's why we are recommending no exemption.
And last question, and then I'll pass it on to my colleagues. There is some discussion today about mail order, and I'm just wondering for those residents who do have, you know, private residence and have a hookah, is there anything to prevent them from mail ordering hookah tobacco? I guess I'm just wondering the mail order aspect, because I know that I heard something about preventing minors from ordering flavored tobacco. So I don't know, Manuel, if you want to talk about that or not, or who should talk about that.
I can add a little bit, and then our deputy can add more if there's more information. But when we had the enforcement grant a few years ago, it included online sales. So there's several restrictions in place. When our folks would do those enforcement operations or those sting operations, and to see whether these were foolproof methods to restrict sales to minors, they will, of course, find some loopholes, and that's the entire purpose of the enforcement operation. So they were very successful in finding what online sales were more restricted than others, and then incorporating that into their enforcement tactics.
And just should note that those jurisdictions that have the resources like we did for tobacco enforcement grant, it is on the books. It is illegal for anyone underage to order hookah through the mail. And so it's really about the jurisdiction's capability and capacity to enforce the law. And we did. And so I should note that. I also want to just make a quick note that really what we're proposing here is bringing us up to where LA County unincorporated areas are at. So the area of Pasadena already has a ban on flavored tobacco, including hookah.
But if I were of age, adult, I could order hookah tobacco for my, mail order. So that's still available.
That's correct.
You may not do it spontaneously and drive to the local shop. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we will turn to Mr. Kennedy, followed by Ms. Williams.
Quick question. Is hookah totally banned in the city of Pasadena?
Well, Councilmember Kennedy, the proposal is for flavored hookah. I am not, you know, I know that I'm not a smoker. I don't smoke hookah. I'm not a consumer. So I don't know to what degree there is availability of unflavored hookah, but it certainly is something that it would be exempt from what we're proposing tonight.
Would be exempt.
Yeah, unflavored hookah or hookah that's not flavored is would not be covered in this ban.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Williams,
Thank you.
followed by Mr. Hampton.
I'm kind of following the line of questioning of my colleagues, Councilmember Kennedy and Wilson. The hookah part is where I'm a little bit stuck because my understanding is so we can't, hookah's not allowed in restaurants, bars, and locations in Pasadena, right? To smoke. It's only in private homes, right?
Correct.
Okay, so but you can still, after this, you could still buy it online, right? So that would be where that they would source it if you smoke it at home, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the flavored ban would only be for retailers in Pasadena.
Okay, so it's the sale that would be banned. So I think it's 8 or 9 cities that have a hookah exemption. Which ones of our neighbors does that include?
Burbank is one of them.
Burbank?
What did she say? Oh.
Okay, so and then I think one of the callers mentioned Glendale. Is that one of them?
Right.
Okay, so we're surrounded. So on the west, we have 2 that have a hookah exemption, and we have LA County that does not have a hookah exemption. Okay, that's helpful for me. I still am stuck a little bit on the not having a hookah exemption because I think it is different. So just would like to hear from my other colleagues, and I don't know if there's sort of a direction we can provide, but that's the one area of concern that I have. Thanks.
Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Judith, as well as Manny for being here and part of the presentation, putting this all together. Definitely appreciate it. This is definitely the work of the health department, but as well as our youth, which we asked to engage at our joint meetings, but with the PUSD. And when we had this joint meeting, I guess this was back in 2019, pre-pandemic, our youth came and they talked about, you know, the access to tobacco and flavored tobaccos and how they're targeting young people. And so we always ask, or at least I always ask our youth to come up with ideas and things that they think will be better for their future moving forward. And this is one of those issues that they were able to partner with our organizations, including the health department. And we are here today with this policy in front of us. Now, hookah was one that, hookah and menthols were both 2 that were concerning to me at the time, but our young people brought those forward to us and said, you know, we would like to see us not be used as a target from predatory tobacco companies trying to get us hooked on tobacco and their products. And so that was compelling enough for me to say, well, you know what, we do these policies, we put these things in place actually for the future of our city and the betterment of our city. And in my opinion, I think the most important thing of our city is the health of our people, the health of the people that live in this community. And given the fact that we can't even buy hookah, I mean, I did actually, Manny, as you mentioned, I went to a couple of smoke shops myself. I'm not a smoker. So I was really interested in going to see if I could figure out where I could buy a hookah pipe in Pasadena or even hookah materials. I went to 2 locations, one on Lake Avenue and one on Washington. And I did not see a hookah pipe, nor did I find any hookah tobacco at those two locations. Now, there may be other locations that do sell these products, but based on my just basic field trip out, I didn't see that being sold in our city and at those two locations. As Manny had mentioned, he went to 8 locations, and nor did he see any of those products being sold there. In the city of Pasadena, we have banned hookah, so you can't even have a hookah lounge if you wanted to. This would be something that would be done in the comfort of your own home. And I think that if culturally this is something that you want to celebrate in your culture, you could do that within your home, because we don't have any other place you can celebrate your culture as far as it relates to hookah. As far as it goes to menthols, it was also one. And in the most compelling comments during our tobacco outreach, which was, I think that was actually 2018 when they did the tobacco campaign at City Hall. Is that right? Okay, 2018. In 2018, I think one of the most compelling conversations after that tobacco outreach was a couple of smokers, people that smoke menthol cigarettes, came up to me and said, you know what, I wish that when I was younger, I didn't have access to this. I wish it was banned a long time ago because I wouldn't have been hooked on this as I am today. And so that was compelling enough for me to especially hear from someone who I have a lot of respect for, who smokes probably 2 packs a day, tell me that they wish that the city, the county, the state would have banned these things a long time ago. And so I have to say that I think it's the choice of any adult to go out and smoke and do whatever they like to do for their enjoyment. But if you're looking to buy smoke in the city of Pasadena that is flavored, I'm sorry, this is not the place. I think we have to listen to our youth. We have to think about our future. And as we all know, in any shape, in any form, in any pipe, in any role, tobacco is not a good thing. So I'd like to move forward with the vote on this, Mayor, whenever whenever that comes up, if there aren't any other questions from our colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Well, this has been a long time coming, and one thing that we do know is that the industry adapts to ever-changing regulations and health attempts from a health perspective to keep kids from getting hooked on tobacco products. And you know that we have to recall that this is a public health issue that we're moving on. And there is nothing that, or I should say, there is no place in Pasadena where you can smoke anything publicly. And you know, the calls to distinguish hookah versus some of the other products that the industry has introduced in order to grow its clientele, I'm not seeing it at this point. So this issue's been around since I was at day one with the debate between whether, you know, Joe Camel and other marketing tools were being used to try and lure kids into becoming clienteles of the tobacco industry. I mean, these are ongoing debates. So I'm prepared also to move this along. Anyone else before we call the roll? Roll call.
To conduct first reading of the ordinance offered by Councilmember Hampton. Councilmember Hampton?
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilmember Madison? Councilmember Madison?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Masuda? Was that a yes? Sorry. Yes. Councilmember Rivas?
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Gordo.
Yes.
The ordinance has been offered and approved for first reading.
Okay, that brings us to item 12, and we have speaker cards, and then we can recess to closed session. How many speaker cards do we have?
I'll offer it.
Offered by Mr. Hampton,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Wilson. Well, it's an ordinance, so yeah. Questions or comments related to the ordinance? Otherwise, we can go right to calling of the roll.
Mayor, I think the city attorney let the council know about this, but I'll just put on the record that there was a frankly kind of a specious claim that I had a conflict, and we did seek not only the city attorney's advice, but also the Fair Political Practices Commission advice on this, and the FPPC confirmed that I have no conflict, so I'll be voting on the matter tonight.
Great, thank you for putting that on the record, Mr. Madison. And that letter is available for anyone to review who wishes to. Yeah. So we have comments.
We do have public comment. We have, I think 5 speaker cards, although one is indicating I do not intend to speak unless needed to answer questions. So do you want to?
Yeah.
All right.
Why don't we go?
I'll
we still
first
have a
do
long
the
agenda, so go ahead and introduce the first reading.
Okay. And then this is an ordinance of the City of Pasadena amending Chapter 17.50 of Title 17 Zoning Code of the Pasadena Municipal Code to increase potential cannabis retail sites and to direct distance separation between cannabis labs and other cannabis uses, and amending Chapter 5.78 of Title 5 Business Licenses and Regulations to increase the time limit to obtain a cannabis permit. The city clerk's office received 6 letters expressing concerns and opposition to the proposed code amendment, noting the need for the city to keep the 1 cannabis retailer per district and or the 1,000-foot separation requirements to protect residential neighborhoods and avoid an over-concentration of such uses. One of the letters also stated that the code amendments violate the voters' intent, violates the rights of Harvest of Pasadena, a licensed cannabis retailer, CEQA state cannabis laws, and CEQA laws, state cannabis laws, and several planning principles. Those letters were posted online, distributed to the city council, and are part of the record for tonight's meeting. The first public comment speaker we have is Dave Barmore, followed by Sienna Fleming, and then Paddle Kasparian has a speaker card in, but is not in the Zoom meeting. Mr. Barmore, how many minutes, Mayor?
2 minutes.
We'll get 2 minutes for this item, so go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Dave Barmore, and I lead public affairs for MedMen. We strongly oppose this attempt to amend the city's existing cannabis ordinance, as we feel is inequitable to the people of Pasadena and to all licensed and pending cannabis retailers in the city. It is also contrary to the intent of Measure CC, which promised to avoid any concentration of retailers in one area. It would be especially prejudicial to MedMen and would upend the status quo in MedMen's pending licensing litigation against the city. As you've heard from multiple council members in the past, we believe the city should finish the current licensing process under the current set of rules. The current recommendation is vocally supported by 1 retailer, Sweet Flower, who has not been able to secure a lease or CUP for a compliant location under the existing ordinance. As you know, MedMen was selected as one of the 6 top scoring applicants in the city's selection process, secured a compliant location in Council District 6, and completed all application requirements for the CUP land use approval. On the evening of our CUP hearing, the city started a process to revoke MedMen's selection based on the false allegations of this retailer and competitor Sweet Flower. That competitor still has no compliant and approved location and appears to continue to bend the rules, including supporting an amendment to allow it to move forward in districts already secured by the retailers. We urge you to vote down this proposal and continue with the process as originally approved by the voters and relied upon by the retail applicants.
25 seconds. Are you completed? All right, thank you very much. Sienna Fleming? Sienna Fleming, sorry. Go ahead, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Sienna Fleming, and I'm the Vice President of Development for Sweetflower. I support the proposed changes to the ordinance to increase potential cannabis retail sites by correcting the distance separations between cannabis uses. These narrow and tailored changes accommodate all remaining applicants without impacting actual sensitive uses. These changes are also necessary to enable the creation of a robust social equity program. The opposition to the ordinance change comes from 2 camps: out-of-state competitors who are aiming to avoid local competition, and those who are confused about the positive community benefits that legal cannabis operators offer. Additionally, I support the proposed time extension as it is necessary to allow all remaining applicants to build a sustainable and equitable cannabis industry in Pasadena. If approved, we look forward to bringing well-paying jobs to Pasadena residents. Thank you for your time.
Paddle Kasparian. Kasparian? See if that's Mr. Kasparian. Are you with Paddle, or is that okay? We'll take them out. Patel. All right. We'll bring in Christy Zamani.
Good evening, everyone. I know it's been a long night, but I hope tonight's a win for public health. We did great on the last item. I hope we continue to do the same for this one. This change would increase our limit from 1 per district to 7 to 28, to my understanding. And I just don't think we need more of this in our city. Our kids are struggling right now. Mental health remains to be the #1 issue facing our youth right now with coming out of the pandemic, and we're doing everything we can to teach them healthy coping mechanisms. And this doesn't match what we're saying. Environment matters. We know that. Modeling matters. So walking home from school and seeing all this matters. So I don't think this is a good idea. I think it's premature, and I don't think we should do it. Thank you.
Thank you. The last speaker's card notes that they do not wish to speak, so it was Tim Dodd. So we will, that will complete public comment on this item.
Mr. Masuda, followed by Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. I still feel that we should not have more than 1 retailer for cannabis in each district. Again, I'll remind you that I was the one that held out for just having 1 per district, and I still feel that way. Just wanted to let you know that I will not be supporting it, this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Masuda. Mr. Kennedy, followed by Vice Mayor Wilson.
Thank you very much. There's no secret where these retailer shops are going. It was intentional from day one in trying to solution a problem to satisfy, in my view, lawsuits. That's my view. And this ordinance fact sheet violates Measure CC. It violates the legislative record that council created when it started the process. And there is no way in which we can legally, in my view, make the argument that it's acceptable to place 3 cannabis retail operations in District 3 without going back to the voters and asking for that authority. I don't believe you can do it administratively. I think it's the wrong policy. And I would just ask any council member was on the fence before to get off the fence and vote this down, that's the right thing to do. And if we need to go back to the voters and expand the authority, then we have to do that, but not in terms of how it's occurring now. It's disrespectful to the rights of any one council member and disrespectful to the collective. We don't do things just because we can do them. We do them because they're right. The voters of Pasadena said they want cannabis, and they said no more than one per district. All of us know that the only place where you can put the other two contemplated cannabis retailers is in District 3. It's unfair, it's unseemly, it's unconscionable, and I'm saying to all of my council colleagues, don't do it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Vice Mayor Wilson, followed by Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with John. We need to be true to the legislative intent, and I'm not a fan of cannabis, but I think the community is expecting us to provide outlets that meet the needs of the city. And unlike one of the public speakers mentioned, it's not 3 per district for 21. It's still, the ordinance limits this to 6 locations. So I think there's demand for cannabis. I'm not one of those people. I think a expectation was set that retailers would be available in the city, and right now I don't think we've followed through. So I'm, like Mr. Kennedy, believe we need to follow through. But my view is the 6 in the city is really what the voters were expecting. And they, having just spent time, by the way, in the redistricting, the lines can move, and I know they will move as part of our redistricting. So this redistrict, 1 per district is kind of a temporal concept. It's kind of map making at one time that will be changed in the future, and frankly, very soon. So despite my personal feelings, I feel like we owe it to the voters to go ahead and allow 6 operators to operate at reasonable different distances and reasonable separation from sensitive uses. So I'm prepared to support the ordinance.
Thank you. And I think that's an important point to highlight, is the separation from sensitive uses remains intact. Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think it's ironic, or I think it is ironic tonight, that we are voting to ban tobacco flavors, but yet we are voting to add more cannabis. And like one of the speakers mentioned, this is a health issue. This is the health of our community. So I will be voting no on this. I think that city, as leaders, we should be consistent. We should always think of the people first and foremost. And so I will be voting no for health reasons, just like I voted no on the last, I voted yes to ban flavored tobacco. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else before we call the roll? I think that completes public comment, as well as council member comments. Roll call.
Mayor, if I could, I think
Madison.
this is terrible public policy. I don't support the legalization of cannabis, but the voters have spoken to that, and we're essentially compelled to adopt a local regulatory scheme. And this one seems to make a lot of sense to me. So I support the ordinance. But I wasn't clear, was there in the motion, is there some modification, or is it as presented? Okay, thank you. So I do intend to support it.
I do think there's a distinction to be drawn here, because besides the voters approving the use of cannabis, there was also the issue, the public safety issue, of trying to rid ourselves of the black market, the rogue operators, and I can tell you firsthand that their attempt to keep a hold on Pasadena was very real at the time. And, you know, not a regulatory scheme, as Mr. Madison puts it, was not something that was supported. And so we had to act in order to avoid the unfettered sale of any product, including this one. And, you know, whether it's a bottle of water or or cannabis, we have the right to do that. And the voters spoke very clearly about what they wanted. I think 6 locations in Pasadena, given our multiple goals of regulating this product as well as preventing the unfettered sales of it, argues in the direction of supporting this change. With that, roll call.
To conduct first reading of the ordinance, which was introduced by Councilmember Hampton. Councilmember Hampton?
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy?
No.
Councilmember Madison?
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda?
No.
Councilmember Rivas?
Yes.
Councilmember Williams?
No.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Gordo?
Yes.
The motion passes 5 in favor, 3 against.
And I'd just like, before we move on, how many operations did we have before this? I think we had 20
something.
Probably about 2 dozen.
We shut them down.
Yeah, there were over 24 locations that simply were, it was an unfettered industry in Pasadena, if you will. And I think limiting it from over 24 to 6 is a reasonable act on the part of the council and reasonable regulation, and maintains the distance requirements that protect our neighborhoods and other sensitive uses. With that, I think that completes our public agenda and allows us public comment for matters not on the agenda.
And then we have public comment actually on closed session items.
The first public comment speaker on matters not on the agenda that had a speaker card in was Sarah Brewer Boland, followed by Bert Newton, followed by Georgia Sanders, although they are no longer in the meeting, followed by Jasmine Richards Abdullah, no longer in the meeting. So then we would turn to Adriana Batista. Ms. Boland, go ahead and start.
Good evening, council members. I'm Sarah Brewer Boland, and since 2015, I have worshiped and taught in the city of Pasadena. As a white person, I address my comments tonight specifically to my fellow white people on the council. Vice Mayor Wilson, City Manager Mermel, Council Member Madison, and City Clerk Chomsky. Gentlemen, I can't help but notice that you have said little and done less regarding the murder of Anthony McClain at the hands of PPD. And I wonder why. Why do you not share the urgency of council members Hampton and Kennedy? Might it be because you don't fear death by police in the course of a police stop?
Ms. Boland,
You can't imagine police murdering.
Ms. Boland, I think the record is quite different, and I don't know that basing your perceptions or the perceptions of others based on the color of people's skin is appropriate in this council chamber.
Well, I just want to say that whether or not anyone else thought that Anthony McClain's on this council thought that Anthony McClain's murder was egregious, the constituents declare unequivocally that it was an egregious violation by police. He was indeed human. He deserved to live. He deserved due process. He did not deserve a bullet in the back, but once it was there, he deserved emergency treatment and not a knee in the back. We demand the immediate firing of the officers who killed Anthony McClain. Mr. Mermel has the power to do this, and I don't understand why he has not. Council members Wilson, Madison, and City Clerk Chomsky, you must agendize the Anthony McClain case and work around Mr. Mermel if he will not act. Thank you.